Hello, it's me, and I've got an interesting one to show you here. This is the Master Ghost Cube. This is really a 4-layer version of this guy over here. Now, you guys remember the Ghost Cube? This was a very interesting modification, very creative, in that you can move this side freely, the top and the bottom, but the way that it's solved is it's solved just off-center where it has to be in order to move it. So here's a center over here, these are edges. You have to line it up to where your edges match edges and centers over here match as well. So I'd put an edge over here and put another edge over here, and then I can start making other movements. So this left it as a particular kind of a challenge, an interesting challenge. So what about the Master Ghost Cube? Well, in many ways this is just as frightening. It really patterns it after the same concept here. So here's a center up here, which is kind of correlated with this center over here. And then you can see the center on the bottom over here as well. So really when you look at it, things are matched up pretty well. But here's the difference. So here you can see I can move this pretty freely here. I can move this freely over here. Then you've got this middle layer over here that moves as well. Now when doing the centers, the challenging thing about this is it's hard to say if a center is upside down or right side up, but here, how do I know where they're supposed to be? Because with an even layer puzzle, rather with an odd layer puzzle, the centers are defined for you. Here they're not. So I could put this over here, this might end up over here. So that's another particular challenge of this puzzle, to know where the centers are supposed to be. Now again, I want to do this by minimal amounts of memorization, but there does need to be something of a familiarization to make this work. But to move this, it's the same kind of thing. Here's the center, I'm going to line it up, here's an edge over here, put it to where the edge lines up with the center here, and across here, and once I do that, it moves, once again moves pretty freely. Of course, there's a little bit of lining up that has to happen. Sometimes it doesn't quite do it right, but as you can see, this can move here, this can move here, this can move here. So, what's the best way of solving this beast? What's the best way of doing this? Keeping in mind this is all the potential parity problems in addition to mysteries of placement that happens with this. Well, the way that I would do this, because I don't really know where the centers are going to have to be, and I don't really want to memorize everything, I can look at edge placement and see that edge placement isn't going to be too much of a problem. This will obviously come to here, these two will come together, so it does fit pretty well. So the first thing that I would probably want to do is understand what is my top center and what's my bottom center. And that's not too hard to look at because those centers are very different. And those are the ones I'm probably going to put in first, here and here. Because these centers are going to make up corners. This is going to come up here and end up to be a corner over here. The way that I would do it is, because I'm not really going to know how things are going to be placed, I'm just going to put the other centers in. And what's important to look at over here is when you take a look at how these centers are coordinated, notice that there's an edge over here that has this kind of biphasic look to it, here and here. And notice that it attaches or articulates, joins with a center that's straight down. You're going to find another one that looks exactly like that, not as the next one, but the one right over that. So it's going to look the same over here. So here's what I would do, knowing that you have this kind of an edge here, followed by a different kind of an edge, followed by the same kind of an edge. Notice too here that what this edge looks like, boy this puzzle loves to turn, is this kind of combines the centers, two different centers that have kind of a biphasic look to it as well. So if I can just remember that I have this type followed by this type over here, where it basically joins two centers where it has two components, an overhanging ridge here and here. And then just across from it is the same thing, which is this guy here, also overhanging edges over here. Then maybe I can see my way through it, because then I can know the relative position as I'm putting things in. Also, the way these centers look over here, you're going to notice that there's usually just one or two that has a flat plane over here. The rest are kind of overhanging. Here, just one with a flat plane, and they're going to be next to each other. So the center with one flat plane is going to be next to another center with one flat plane. All of these have overhanging edges. Then over here it has two flat planes, right next to another one with two flat planes. And the reason for that is because these ones here have to accept this edge that has one straight line here and one straight line here. So that's the basic outline that I'm going to be using. I'm not sure if that's going to help me too much, but let's see what we can do. So once again, top and bottom should be fairly easy to get. 3. So 2 and 2 are next to each other, and 1 and 1 are next to each other. So let's see if we can guide our way through that. So I'm going to take the plunge here. Now I have solved this, but you know, we're going to take the plunge here and do our scramble. So I'm just going to line it up here, line it up here, and then just start moving things. Now the thing about this is that I can always keep track of what I'm doing because the relative position of these components, even though it's shape-shifting, never changes. So you can see that this can move over here and here. This is a modification of an East-Sheen puzzle. East-Sheen puzzles must really move great in the pure cubic form, but I gotta tell you, every time I have modifications that are made out of East-Sheen puzzles, they're very delicate, and they actually have their internal structures that come apart quite easily. I think that has to do with the fact that when you have mods like this, you have a lot of overhanging sharp edges, so to speak. So that may make it a little difficult. Okay, so as you can see, I'm throwing caution to the wind, lining things up, and just scrambling. So I'm going to go ahead and continue that, and we'll have the classic Ghost Cube Scramble. Abracadabra. And there you have it. Okay, so this is your typical Ghost Cube Scramble, where you have just a bunch of shards everywhere. You can't even pick out what kind of a shape this is. Is it a Megamorphinx? Is it a cube? Is it who knows? But anyway, so that's the fun thing about putting this back together. It's not just a bunch of colors you're trying to bring in, you're trying to recreate the shape. So what we're going to do is try to recreate the two centers that were the easiest to keep track of. And they're the centers that are going to basically make up the corners. So these two are going to come together. Now these two are already together, but as you can see, they don't seem to quite fit, but they might. So I might just keep them that way. That really wasn't intended. So I look at this big long one here. So I'm going to focus on this. This will probably find a home with something that looks a little like it. Aha, over here. How about this? So I'm going to move this like this and see if this guy can find a home with this. Means moving it all the way up here. Well, it's not quite positioned correctly here. Maybe it's this one. So turn this here. Turn this like so. And turn it down. Aha! So we like it. These two fit together nicely. So now I'm going to find the long pieces that go right next to it over here. These qualify. So what if I were to turn this over here? Say like this, and move these two into here. See what seems to fit. Okay, so you can see it kind of looks the way sort of it's supposed to be, but it doesn't quite seem to fit like that. So I'll move this like so. And I'll turn this around like this. And turn this in. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And for the moment, why don't we say that this works? There's a little bit of overhanging, but that's okay. So I'm going to say that we've got our center over here. Now we're going to try to get our opposite center. Now here's a question though. Should I do that? Should I get the opposite center, or should I start working on these guys here, since I already have kind of a plan in my head about what they're sort of supposed to look like? I guess you can do it either way, since you're just kind of playing with it anyway. Unless we gear it towards the last two centers is going to contain this guy up here. I don't think it should really matter. But as I'm scanning around here, I see that this is already in. This is already where it needs to be. So I know that we're going to be going based on that pattern of one in and the rest out. But I'm going to go ahead and get the top center over here and see how that works for me. So I think these two are already joined, should come up here, because this is going to come to a corner. This is long and this is long. So my thinking is that this will actually come over to here. No. So So that is something of a dead end. I still like the thought of these being together. So maybe if I turn this here, and then turn this over here, and I'm going to try to line this up to here with this one over here. So let's just see what it looks like. Turn it down, and yeah, sure, that's pretty good. So now that I have what I think is correct over here, I want to move these two into here. So to do that, I'll just move this here for now, turn this here. Then as best we can, we'll turn this. And again, the movement is actually good, but there's a lot of overhanging edges that I have to line up, which does make some of the turns challenging. It's not really a problem with lubrication or anything, it's just a problem with centering. And move it up. Okay, so as you can see, this is still okay. I like what we did over here. Now this I know is supposed to come over to here. But why don't we line up the other one here first? The other large one that's supposed to go over here. And where might that be? Well, that might be right over here. So I know this is correct. And then we just turn 1, 2. And I'm trying to get this to come in with this. Okay, I think it's lined up here. And then we move it from the center all the way down. 1, 2. Okay, and so get this lined up. 1, 2. Move this part down. Like so. 1, 2, and right back up. Okay, so we're going to say for now, this is right and this is right. Now it might just be that these two don't belong with these sides, they might belong like this. Do we like that? It really could be either or at this point. It could be either or, but I won't know until the end if things just aren't quite working. Or maybe this belongs over here. I'd like to say that I can tell just by how they're lined up, but I really can't. That's what experience has shown me. So now the question is getting in the centers with these guys. So I can find ones that are already in. So we'll move this here, and this seems to fit with this pretty well. These two seem to fit. So now I can lock this in and decide what's supposed to go next. Now if I got myself more familiar with it, I would know if this is a 1 or if this is a 2 that has these coming in. But I can see if maybe another plain flat one will make its way comfortably there. So what if I turn it like this? Keep turning it around until this is in. This doesn't seem to fit over here. But this fits here. So I've got this over here. So this is just the trial and error process that I'm doing. Now, does this potentially end up over here? We can move it and we can see that no, it doesn't, but these two are doing okay over here. So maybe these three will stay together, or perhaps these three will stay together. So I need something else to act as a juxtaposition, maybe another piece that can fit in with this along with these two. So let's see what we've got. So I know that it's going to be held like this, and I'm looking for another piece that can join this or join this one over here. So it's going to be another biphasic piece, perhaps this one over here. Let's see what happens if I put that in. So this doesn't meld with that. It's going to be another piece that's kind of jutting out a little bit. So perhaps this, but that's not going to match up with that. So another one that has two phases that's jutting out. Maybe one of these guys here. So what happens if I move this in? So you can see this looks good over here. So what I'm going to do is this moves to here without bumping these two out. Well, I can move it in here, which creates this side. Well, I don't want to make it too complicated there. So what I'm going to do is Match these up, match this up here. Turn it like so. And now I want to turn this into position here. Just like this. So this guy, just to match it up here, is going to come to here. So turn it over here, which creates this side. Then I'm going to turn this down, and then move this down like so. Then I'm going to turn this back. Now this is the same strategy that you see me use to get the center of all big cubes. This comes here, then turn this back like so, and this comes here, and bang, we got it there. So we've got this side over here, and what's more, these two seem to match up. So I'm using a lot of serendipity to help me solve this. Now, what you can see is I've got two here. So right next to these two is going to be another one, and I can remember that it was actually three. Well, this was the one that was quote three, but anyway, the other one with two flat ones. But let's look at this. We've got these two over here, and actually, dare I say, these three seem to fit. So if that's the case, then I'm going to put another one here. This is just one that's going to fit in here. One of the flat ones. This is two, so right here is going to be two. This will have to be just one. So which one? Well, let's move this around and see what seems to fit. By one and by two, of course, you realize that I'm talking about just the flat ones. Ones that are in one plane. So we've got this over here. Will this find a nice home over here next to this guy? Well, let's see. Line it up, move it in, and no, not this one. No worries, we got a couple here to choose from. Now let's see if we can't reason this out a little bit. This one is going to be kind of sloping downwards. So if anything, maybe this one. So let's move this here, turn, and move it back here. Okay, now does any of these look like it might fit? Well, I think it was this one that I was working with here. So turn this here. Yes, no. How about this one? I think it's got to be facing up anyway. So turn, let's see if this one comes in here nicely. Bang, and yeah, I think we like it. I think that'll work. So same technique of moving this to here. Basically move this in, creating this plane. Turn that plane out of the way, move it down. Move this back. To reconstitute it, this moves back up. This turns like so, and this turns up. Now, you can see that this is made very well. This is made by the same guy who made for me the ghost cube, which some of you guys know. So this is good, and now we have, very quickly, we've led ourselves to the last two centers. That wasn't so hard, was it? Or was it? All right, so let's look at the type of centers that we have here. This is just one that's in a plane. This one has two. So this is two, this is one, which means the one that goes right next to this is also going to have one. So we'll say just this one. This is one, this is two. This center is supposed to have two. So I already have the one, so I know that these two stay here. So it's going to be this one or this one that's going to come into here. So let's move it into place here. Bang, bang. So this really takes the 4x4 solve to the next level of strategy. Well, I'm going to pause now because my wife just handed me a brownie. Not just any brownie, but one of my mother-in-law's brownies. So I shall return. See? Who could resist that? Okay. So we'll see which one goes where. So this one, probably not, because that's standing a little high. That probably is where this needs to be. So let's wheel this guy around here. So again, this is more just for demonstration purposes, for those who want to buy this puzzle. There's no hard and fast rule to do this. These are just some guidelines that I'm using. Turn this like so. Now, does this fit nicely over here? One way to find out, and yeah, see that? Okay, well, I'll just continue the process then. I put this in here, I created this layer here, so we'll turn this to the side, and then move it down, turn this back, move this up, turn this in, and move this back. So this is more for demonstration purposes of making sure they're all in. So good, 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 and now we've got this guy. Got to put this one in. So let's see if this makes cohesive sense. I have one here, so one that's in a flat plane, two that's in a flat plane, and I'm going to have two, actually three in a flat plane over here, but we'll call it two. So now we have to put them in. Now you know that when you're doing the last two centers of a even layer puzzle, you have to make it to where you're not assembling this 90 degrees off center of everything else. And the way to do that is you put your corners in. That's going to be somewhat difficult with this particular puzzle. And we may want to have a situation where instead of doing it in conjunction with this, do it in conjunction with one of these tops and bottoms, because that's going to be easier for me to visualize as to where the corners are supposed to be. So let's see how we're going to do this. These two are in. These two basically need to be flipped. These need to be flip-flopped. And there's a particularly easy way of doing that. The only question is, what is that going to do to our corners? What I might do is I might just put the centers in and then look at the corners and see where they're at. If the corners are in wrong, or the corners show they're in wrong, then I'll just redo it from there. But let's go ahead and put this in. And the way that I do that is I'm going to hold it like this. So I'm going to do it really in conjunction with this. This is going to be the foil at which I'm going to be doing it against. But what this algorithm does, once again, is moves this to here, and this to here. And these guys don't change. So what I'm going to do is the first algorithm is going to take this and bring it down here. This has to come over to here. I can't do much in the way of false equivocation, but anyway, so this will come here, and then I need to bring this up oh so discreetly to this. So that algorithm is going to be R UI LI U RI UI L. And then this comes back with a U. Okay. Alright, so very good. This was brought to here. Now this needs to be taken up to here. So actually I'm going to move this back. Probably shouldn't have moved it out. Ooh. So this moves back here. Now the one that I moved out, this one has to come into here. So I'm going to turn this like so. Now this will come here, this will come here, and this will come here. So bang. Zoom. Pow. Splat. Crunch. Shazam. Okay, so that's an over here. Now all I have left to do is move this up to here, which is going to do some other interesting things. So move this around here. This moves to here, so the final blow here is this will come here and be solved, this will come here, and this will come here, and all will be right with the world. So, here we go. R UI LI U RI, and then finally UI L. Okay, don't worry about this. This just is one of the extensions that came out. But luckily I had the centers in before I did that. So my purpose of this was just to get all the centers relative to each other. So this is in, this is in. So we have the top and we have the bottom. And we have these that are in the middle layer. Now, I don't even know if this is supposed to be here or this is supposed to be here, but this was one hurdle that I went through, because I could mix and match and put these where they need to be, but the only way for me to know if this is supposed to be here and not here is by the edges. And the only way for me to know that the edges are correct is if I do edge reduction. So that's what I'm going to do next, is I have to reduce the edges in order to make this work. Now normally what I would have done is put the corners in, but what's the sense in putting the corners in if I don't even know if these centers are where they're supposed to be? So